Hello there! Today I'm going to build Hobby Boss's 1/48 scale Brazilian Embraer 312 Tucano. This is a two-seat advanced trainer. It's used sometimes, as you can see with the guns there on the front there, as a counterinsurgency thing. Let's crack open the box and see what we get inside. A little sprue tour first, which shows that Hobby Boss has got a very nicely modelled aircraft here. Not too many parts, a conventional breakdown for a single engine fighter plane with a few extras. Construction starts with a cockpit, funnily enough, and I'll put together the ejection seat first, which although well detailed is a little lacking. Now because I'm going to do this wheels up, I'm going to need some pilots. I've got this really nice set from KASL Hobby. It's for an F5, but as you can see the seat detail is a lot better and you get two great pilot figures. The cockpit builds up very quickly without any troubles and quickly goes together. Throughout the whole build I primed with Res Grey primer. It's an excellent primer. And it's on to painting the crew and the cockpit tub. I used a basic grey for the inside and the tub itself. The grey Res was fairly close to the base colour and this gives some nice highlights. Next, I used a very dark grey instead of a straight black to do the panel cowlings and the ejection seats. Those little fiddly mirrors on the instrument panels almost all fell off towards the end. If I was going to do this build again, add them just before you close the canopy next time. The pilots were hand painted with life colour paints with various olive drabs for their uniforms. I then moved on to hand painting the knobs and switches in the cockpit. The pilots had moulded in seat belts, thankfully. And to change them up a bit, I gave them different coloured helmets. Next, I gave the ejection seats a slight dry brush using Tamiya aluminium, using a very old brush, and then a dark wash on the pilots. I used Tamiya Smoke, which is a nice gloss paint for the visors, gives an almost translucent black look. Okay, on to getting the tub in the aircraft. The first glue I use is Revell Contactor, the RC, that I've put inside a Tamiya extra thin bottle. This helps locate the parts and give you a little extra time to work. Next, I use the Tamiya Extra Thin itself for the actual welding and applying some pressure to get it to melt the plastic pieces together. I then finish off with the Tamiya Quick Glue, which after a few seconds of application finishes everything off. It's got the same properties as the thin, but works a lot faster. Getting rid of seam lines comes next. fit was very good, so I only needed a few drops of putty to ensure I had no ghost seams. This small section underneath was the only real trouble spot. I then used small, thin sandy sticks, and without applying any pressure, and then a buffing pad to clean up the putty away. I then apply some flat black paint just to make sure the seams are gone. The next stage of the wheels up process is I build up the sides of the wheel well with little bits of styrene to make a ledge, and then I just simply glue in the wheel covers. Onto the wings. Again, same principle of gluing. Use the Revell one first on the major parts of the wing halves. Then place the upper half. I only use clamps here to ensure I don't touch the plastic with my hands if the extra thin runs off too much. Now for the main wheel wells. Again, using some plastic and carefully trimming the main pieces. It's not hard to get these in and looking fairly seamless. This was a mistake. I should have left these pylons off because they're painted a different colour. The fuselage to wing fit was very good, although there was a small step at the rear which required some adjustment. Here I just used some Tamiya extra thin and no filler required. The landing lights were painted with chrome inside and then fitted. I found this fit troublesome later on. The small fuselage strakes are made out of photo etch. I actually used Tamiya extra thin to glue these in since the plastic melts them around for a very tight fit. A few extra parts to glue on and we're almost ready for primer. Next, the gun pods. Very good fit, although I had to get rid of some seams almost all the way around. And then I drilled out the barrels. The canopy has a clear insert in the middle that needs very careful gluing in, and the canopy itself attaches nicely to the fuselage. I made sure not to apply glue where the tape goes. I wanted a really nice fit, and once dry, I removed the tape to apply glue all the way around later. The gun pods were painted olive drab. I initially primed these with a metal colour for chipping, but this wasn't necessary in the end. The propeller assembly was painted NATO black. Not quite full matte black again, but it's got a nice semi-gloss sheen. While the exhausts were eventually painted with Alclad. Now for the overall painting. I used Mr. Paint light grey for the underside, and how do I love this paint. It's so easy to use and very forgiving. I shoot at around 15 psi using a 0.25 needle. Notice that I apply a bit more on the panels to break it up a bit, because references show a relatively clean aircraft. Some initial trouble with the kit decals. They don't like warm water at all and curled up on themselves immediately. Once I switched to using cold or room temperature water, they were fine and very easy to put on. Once dry, it was time for a gloss coat. I used Tamiya X22, thinned about 60% with Mr. Leveling Thinner. I give a light coat first and then quickly follow that up with a wet coat, which makes for a really nice utility gloss. Now for some weathering. Panel line washes. I like these ones from MIG, but they're a bit thick, so I thin them down with some enamel thinner to flow better. I use the blue-grey for the bottom. All the other final bits are glued on and it's ready to finish. So there it is, the Hobby Boss Tucano, my first full build step-by-step video. I hope you really enjoyed it. It's a quite enjoyable kit and build, great for cleaning out the mojo to then tackle something a bit more adventurous. Please leave a comment or suggestion on how I can improve or what you liked in the video below, and if you want to see some more builds and techniques, please subscribe and stay tuned for more. Here's some bloopers, and I hope you have a great day. Till next time. Cheers. More dog hair. See bloody dog hair everywhere. Stop shaking, you piece of shit.